In honor of Black History Month, WIS is honoring pioneers and change makers whose stories went untold as they fought for equal rights here and nationwide. Our WIS Black History Month special, It Started Here, airs this Thursday night. This passion project was created by our very own Billie Jean Shaw and Intisar Faulkner, who's up way past her bedtime to join us live in the studio tonight to tell us about the behind-the-scenes experience. First of all, ladies, congratulations on a phenomenal project. I've had a look behind the scenes at the way the work, the heart, the love, the effort that you have put into this special. I cannot wait to see it on Thursday night. Billie, tell me why you are so passionate about this.
Well, before I go there, I also have to give a quick shout out to Russ Cognan, who was our photographer for this, who put in just as much hard work and still is up there working hard to put those final touches on it. But it was something that was near and dear to our hearts because, at least for me, growing up here in South Carolina, you're around the history and you're like, well, this wasn't in the history book, or when I go to another state, they don't know about this. Right. And it's just like South Carolina is the forgotten child when it comes to the contributions of the civil rights movement, and we wanted to make those stories heard and told and let people know what's going on, because even here in South Carolina, some people don't even know it.
Have no idea.
Yeah.
Have no idea. Intisar, ever since you joined us here at WIS, one of the things I have admired most about you is your commitment to making sure that voices that aren't always in the mix are heard and are valued. And one of your favorite stories was on civil rights photographer Cecil Williams. I think he's going to be featured in this. I know y'all have talked to him. But what was your favorite part about working on this project?
I think just that. The people that I was able to meet, and coming here to South Carolina, seeing all of the legends that are from right here, and to be able to speak to them, talk to them, hear their stories one-on-one, hear that behind-the-scenes aspect, especially with Cecil, him being there at the Orangeburg Massacre. Those stories matter, and to be able to have those gems here in our community and to be able to talk to them was so, so special.
Listen,
so I'm excited to be able to share this, and Billie Jean I know is as well.
Every time I hear both of you talk about it, it gives me chills. I'm feeling that right now because, you know, we talk about these pioneers who really paved the way, Billie Jean. And I know one of the folks that you talked to is Jim Felder, who's the historian for the South Carolina chapter of the NAACP, but he was such a change maker himself.
Yes.
Tell us, I don't want you to give away too much, but the stories that you have contributed to this special, give us a little overview of what to expect.
Well, people can expect to hear about Mary McLeod Bethune. They can expect to hear about Briggs versus Elliott, which is the catalyst for integration across the nation. We will also learn about who didn't move off their seat before Rosa Parks.
Exactly.
And the Friendship Nine. We know about those all-whites lunch counter sit-ins, but it was something a little special about what they exactly did. And one thing I want to point out, Judy, is that we both spoke to Mr. Cecil Williams, Mr. James Felder. We spoke to eyewitnesses, okay? This isn't someone who read a history book and then they're telling us, no, these people we spoke to lived through the moments. So that just gives you an idea about how far we've come, but how far we still have to go. I think when we see the black and white pictures, people think, oh, that's so old. Oh, that's the 1800s. No, it's not. In living color, you'll see that these interviews are things that happen within a lifetime, and I'm so glad that we got to talk to those who witnessed it and was a part of the change.
And Intisar, the fact is, not only did it not happen not that long ago, but some of the issues that they worked so hard to address, we are still trying to wrap our arms around and figure out a way to really have meaningful change today, especially as it relates to education and other issues surrounding equity.
Absolutely, and I think the message of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, you'll see that within the stories that we share, is that she was that catalyst not only for black education, but for education across the country, for all kids to have that opportunity, for all kids to be able to have that shot and chance at the American dream. So being able to share her story, as well as what Billie Jean said, the other stories that we're going to be highlighting. And also another thing to point out, a lot of the family members of the people that we talked to said that a lot of these people who were these legacies were ashamed to talk about some of these stories, didn't really voice these things to their family. So us being able to have the opportunity to share this and, you know, let others know that these were the change makers and pioneers, and they were the ones that really pushed off the civil rights movement right here from South Carolina.
It started here. Listen, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to have more with Billie Jean and Intisar right after this, and more about It Started Here on WIS. WIS News 10. Welcome back, everyone. As we celebrate Black History Month at WIS, we want to invite you to join us on Thursday night for a WIS special, It Started Here. It is an incredible production that has been produced by our Billie Jean Shaw and Intisar Faulkner. Also given a shout out, as you said so deservedly earlier, our Russ Congdon, our chief photographer, who was behind the lens to capture these special images. Intisar, I want to start with you. Tell me about the personal experiences for you in working on this.
The personal experience, Judy, to be honest, there were some days that I went home and cried. I went home and cried. And it was really, as I was stating earlier, to hear family members say, yeah, this person was such a champion, but we felt ashamed to talk about it, or we didn't know these stories, or we didn't share these stories. You know, to see the families and the areas, even going to Maysville, South Carolina, and seeing the rich history that they have there that some of us don't even know about, probably wouldn't even get off the highway to see. But the rich history of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune is right there in our backyard. So that experience of traveling across the state every day, gathering these stories and speaking to people, sometimes made me a little emotional when I got home.
Yeah. Understandably, and understandably so. And Billie Jean, for you, I've got to imagine that part of the personal experience, we see Dr. Bobby Donaldson there, who's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this rich history in our state. But your dad was one of these trailblazers.
Yes.
And a lot of people may not know that.
You know what, Judy? I even learned through Mary McLeod Bethune's story that my father, back in the 90s, was the first person to contact the builders to get a statue for Mary McLeod Bethune there. Now, it didn't come, obviously, until years later, you know, in the 2000s, a few years later. But he was the first one, he was president of the NAACP, of the Sumter chapter, to even get the conversation going, to even map out a blueprint of what this looks like. I didn't know that. I also did not know, I mean, I knew this, and then I put two and two together, that when we talk about Briggs versus Elliott and in Somerton and interviewing people that are, you know, in their late 80s, 90s, I'm like, Grandma, you're the same age. Didn't you grow up in Somerton? Wait a minute, you lived through this?
Those connections,
And she was like, baby, yes, I walked to school. We didn't have a bus. It was dangerous. It was this, it was that. I saw this. There were KKK members around. And we've had these conversations, but it wasn't until I did this story, so I'm like, oh my gosh. You were in the same area as these things were happening, walking down rural roadways just like this to go to school. The historic Liberty Hill AME Church, where I visited growing up, my home church right down the street, Talkoff Baptist Church in Somerton, just not knowing these things. I mean, knowing but not putting the connections together, because that was home. But it was just mind-blowing, and of course very emotional, like Intisar said as well.
All right, we have about 30 seconds left, so I'll give you each about 15 seconds. Intisar, your favorite part of this? I know I'm putting you on the spot, it's so hard, but one moment that caught you unexpectedly, maybe.
I think the moment that caught me unexpectedly was going to the Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune replica house in Maysville and standing in that room, that family room.
Wow.
And just feeling that moment of saying, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
What about you, Billie Jean?
I will say, just overall, talking to the history makers that are living, again, just realizing that there's people who lived through this, and I'm so happy that they're able to see where we are now. And then the interview with Mr. James Felder, and we'll be releasing this on social media as well, where I asked him about Mary McLeod Bethune. We were talking about it, and he said, I interviewed Mary McLeod Bethune. I'm like, you did what?
Yes.
And so just talking to people who were eyewitnesses to history, we appreciate it so much. And a special shout out to Mr. Cecil Williams, who really allowed us to use his space, use his museum to put the bow on this special. So we appreciate Mr. Williams as well.
Listen, cannot applaud your efforts enough. So proud of both of you. Cannot wait to see this special on Thursday night. It started here. And teachers, I would encourage you, make this a homework assignment on Thursday night. Have your students watch this special and share something on Friday that they learned. Share a special connection. Share someone they admire and respect, something new that they learned from watching this special on Thursday night. It is sure to start a conversation that they will not forget. And to all of our change makers, thank you indeed for paving the way. It started here Thursday night, right here on WIS at 7 p.m.